Hey traders, this is Christian from Tropic Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, August 7th. Already Wednesday, we've got 2 more days to go for the week before we get a weekly bar in the S&P, which should be pretty interesting. But let's talk about today's price action. Really, going all the way back to this morning, which feels like it was a week ago. Because it kind of just felt like a long day, but crazy selling pressure there going into the open this morning. And we broke through value, sliced through this very quickly. And, again, it just seems like the market is moving a lot faster than what we've seen, what, just a couple weeks ago, right? It seems like we have another level of volatility that we have not seen in a while. But really nice recovery from where we opened today. Notice that we just finished unched for the day, or barely in the green, plus 15 basis points, but some good buying opportunities from this morning. So, how does this look? So this is the 5 minute bar. This is kind of what we did. We recovered, came close to the top of value, retested, almost looked like we were going to come back down here again, but we got right back into value. And then really had a nice afternoon for the day. So, performance for the day, if we look at my percentage change from the open, you could see a lot of green in this column. The Qs finished up 1.6% from the open, so up a 0.5% for the day. Everything else, SPYs, diamonds, IWM, basically were unched for the day. But again, from where these things started out, a really nice reversal day to the upside. And again, sometimes it really takes a little bit of volatility to the downside to kind of bring out the buyers to think that they're getting a deal. But it just seems like that's how this market has been behaving. In terms of sectors, some really nice performance. The solar group continues to be super, super hot. Even though I think Run reported earnings and they're down a little bit, but this solar chart, very, very, very strong. And what's interesting about this market right now is it seems like a changing of the guards in terms of some sectors, right? Solar is technically, it's clean energy, right? It's not energy. I don't think you would categorize it that. But you look at what's going on between solar and oil names, and they're going in the opposite directions right now. So it does feel like there's a lot of trends that are kind of setting the tone. I mean, even, to be, I don't know, to be funny or not to be funny, but like Match.com, right, is up to $91. I mean, this is crazy. And then you can, look at older school groups of stocks like banks, and they've just been struggling, and they've been struggling for a while. So, it's really, I'd say, kind of a hot money type of market right now, where the trends and some growth companies that have a long runway are doing really well right now. So other things that kind of transpired for the day, other than real nice reversal bar, just keep your mind open right now. I think Tony Dwyer was just on CNBC a little while ago, and I seem to agree sometimes with what he says. I don't think he's a permabull. I don't know Tony Dwyer that well, but it seems like what he happens to say a lot of the times I agree with. And he was saying a couple weeks ago that we were probably due for we got a little bit overheated, and he was pretty spot on with that. And he was saying that, hey, we could possibly get, we have bounced here. We are going to be hitting some resistance in some places, like some names that have seen some call buying. Visa has had a really nice bounce, but it's got to get above 150, 175.77. Microsoft has had a nice little bounce, but that's going to have to get a little bit higher. It's going to have some above supply to deal with. So if you look at Microsoft, for example, it's really it has to get above 136 to get back into August value. So, how do you manage this stuff during the day is if you bought some, somewhere around the lows. Of course, everyone's human, and it's impossible to kind of get the lows. But if you bought some in here, somewhere in here, you're probably, trying to trim and take some profits, just in case we don't get that, a straight up move. We could also come back here and retest and then do one of these, right? I don't know. And I think at this market, of course, the market is impossible to predict, but I think for what is going on a day-to-day basis, you kind of want to kind of think about things, and be mindful of your risk and so forth, right? I'll give you a couple examples of what I traded today, and I'm doing a lot of different things, obviously calling out option flow and so forth. But look at this Octa roller coaster today, right? I was able to take a target, and then I set a downside alert, got distracted, looked back at this 15 minutes later, and this thing gave back all the gains. So you really have to stay. If you're trading a little bit short term, if you're not adding for the long term, you really have to pay attention. Add some alerts, and make sure that you're abiding to them, because things like this can really. Now, granted, this name came back, but you can have a reversal like this, just like we saw last week, right? And if you're not taking profits, you could really get caught. Now, granted, I took a target around 133, so I didn't catch the very high. I was looking at this, trying to get a target. You're trying to take this trade off maybe up here. Where is this for Octa? I could have sworn I saw some Virgin point of controls up here. Maybe it was another name. Nope, I don't see them. But anyway, I was looking for a little bit of a bigger target. Maybe it was on the daily chart. Nope, nope, wasn't that either. But in any event, I think really being observant of the market, and making sure that you're putting these trailing stops in place and honoring them can really be the difference in your day, whether or not you're profitable or not. Really. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about management. Let's talk a little bit about what happened with bonds. Right. So we go back to my spreadsheet here for a second, because I just went over what happened with equities, but a huge reversal in bonds. I had said earlier in the day that this is kind of ridiculous. The bonds TLT was up over 2.2% at one point today, and look at what it did. It finished flat on the day, so really super overbought. I mentioned that the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, was way overbought. It was an 86 this morning. Now it's still overbought. But we did see a put buyer once there was a bond auction that came. There's a 10-year bond auction that there was not peak demand for. So what happens when something is that overbought and you get a bond auction that doesn't go that well? You could see this thing still selling off here after hours. So possibly a reversal in bonds, which I think is decent. That the bid in bonds may start going away short term. Gold, on the other hand, I think hung in there, finished off the highs. Yeah, I mean, still up 2% for the day, but also good to see this kind of come off the highs a little bit, right? I think it's a little bit things got a little bit too crazy in bonds and gold in the short term. The VIX. The VIX sank below 20. I think this is important to look at. This is something that we talked about in the pre-market session at Tribeca Trade Group, where we talked about that with the VIX above 20, you really have to be mindful when you're taking option positions. And again, the video, of course, is for information purposes only. I'm not telling you how to trade. I'm not giving out any advice or recommendations. But right, when the VIX is about twice as much as it was last week, you do not need the same position size, considering that the market is moving faster, right? You're basically, if you're putting the same position size, like let's say you normally trade 10 contracts, and if you're trading 10 contracts the same as you were doing a week or 2 weeks ago, you really have much more risk than you did 2 weeks ago, right? So you have to be aware of like how the components of options and volatility is a big component, and can really swing around your P&L pretty decently. Also, if the VIX comes in further, the value of your options goes down, right? So again, you may want to substitute. If you regularly trade options, you may want to consider trading some stock too, right? You don't have to worry about that volatility component in stock. All right, but let's see how much further this VIX wants to go. Right now, the weekly bar of the VIX, looks very toppy, but we still have a couple days left in the week. So we'll see what this does, but I think that's, if you're a little bit bullish this market, this is what you want to see. Something like this in the VIX. It has not lost the short-term moving averages, so just be mindful of that. All right, so that's a couple things, but I think overall message is to kind of be mindful of your risk and how you're managing day to day. A couple other things just to go over some of the trades that I did today. I talked about Okta already. McDonald's was a really nice one. McDonald's finished above value, so really nice day for McDonald's. Put this out on Twitter yesterday. Real nice recovery and nice relative strength in McDonald's. So that was one of our trades. DHI was another one. I did think DHI, considering the move in interest rates are this low, homes are more affordable, and I managed to take two targets in this trade today. So real nice on this one. Just looking out further, if you followed me in this trade, the weekly bar, it's got to get for the week above 47.25. If it doesn't, that's why you take targets, right? And this way I've got just the remaining piece on this one. One name that I'm watching for tomorrow, probably a few names that I'm watching for tomorrow, but Amazon. If you look at first of all, the weekly bar. We talked about Amazon a little bit in the room today. 1770, call it, is where we have to stay above for the week. If not, we're going to be in value and we're losing this uptrend. But on the 1 hour, I would watch this name tomorrow. I think it's now above that purple line, which is the 50 period moving average. It's kind of the first time that this has done this. You could see all the moving averages cross over as well. So I like that. And I think, again, not for long term right now, but maybe a bounce trade. You've got a decent amount of upside before you hit some resistance here in Amazon. So that's the name that I'm watching for tomorrow. Plenty more to go over in the pre-market session tomorrow. I thought, just final note, the chart forum that we gave for members last night, if you're a non-member and you want a copy of that, you can email me. And I'm happy to kind of show you what we do. It's a weekly chart forum that we kind of really dig in to charts once the market is closed. So that's it for tonight. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow.